In the Style as Risk, Cioran analyzes writing and literature, how it relates to the society. He says that in the nation going downhill, everything diminishes, including the language, and gives example of France's and Rome's linguistic decline. I think we can see what is happening to the language in our modern society, how fast it is transforming, for the worse, declining. And this is consistent with what is happening to the Western civilization. And this links to the next chapter, Beyond the Novel, which discusses the growing reference to the novel's writer's own life, biography, when writing a novel, which implies lack of originality and laziness, other signs of decline. I think this is rather obvious in art in general. Take a look at the modern visual art. If today's artist takes refuge in obscurity, it is because he can no longer create with what he knows. The extent of his information has turned him into a commentator, an Aristarchus without illusion. To safeguard his originality, he has no recourse, save an excursion into the unintelligible. Further, Cioran says that reading of novels is a sign of decline in itself. Well, we are already well past reading novels. We are truly beyond novels, I think reading in general. Now it is reality TV and social media where people's lives are new visual novels. Maybe the most obvious sign of our decline is life becoming a type of cliché. Specific things such as tattoos, sex, or travel became meaningless activities done for the sake of doing. In the dealing with the mystics and rages and resignation, Cioran goes back to Nietzsche and the events that led us to where we are, the Protestant Reformation and the French Revolution. Their cause was Catholicism, its inflexibility, the unwillingness to adapt to the changes in individual and society, the changing relationship between man and God, many realizing they don't need God to exist and be happy. Once we have ceased linking our secret life to God, we can ascend to ecstasies as effective as those of the mystics and conquer this world without recourse to the beyond. And this also gives us more presence in the now, existing in the present. Cioran goes back to the ancient history and sees Catholicism as the destroyer of Rome. Perhaps it was the revenge of the Jews for the Rome's sacrilegious acts against them, a type of Jewish Trojan horse and a gift that keeps on giving. And then Cioran gets to the universal despair of man, their mission of self-destruction and its finality for life in general. His mission to become his own enemy. If life has falsified matter, he has falsified life. Will his experiment be repeated? It does not seem to imply much of a posteriority. Everything leads us to assume that man is the last caprice nature has allowed herself. Perhaps nature went too far with man and gave him too much free will, or just the idea of free will was a mistake. The last chapter is the temptation to exist, where Cioran might have thought of explaining it, but probably came to the conclusion it was futile, not really necessary. Instead, he proposes just accepting it and go on living without thinking about it. Maybe nature creates in us the temptation to exist, to forget we are going to die and focus on living, to complete the mission, whatever it is. The question might be why there is fear of death if it seems somewhat counterproductive. Maybe the survival instinct needs it, but it seems there's also need for some kind of balance. Life or death is a paradox. By resisting it, we are getting closer to it. In the end, Cioran focuses on death, maybe because it is the end to our temptation to exist, but at the same time, it is present throughout our existence in the form of fear. Death destroys our identity only to permit us a surer access to it, a reconstitution. For death has no meaning unless we accord it all the attributes of life. Death institutes itself as a day-by-day dimension of our life, a triumphal agony. Cioran suggests we need to embrace death, to make it part of ourselves instead of looking at it as something separate, foreign, maybe so we can tame our temptation to exist. He equates death to love since he sees both as capable of destruction. Seems Cioran wanted to discover the mystery of death, probably to psychologically vanquish it. It might have something to do with his natural refusal of seeing suicide as some kind of viable solution. And maybe he wanted to simplify life, but perhaps went too far, because life is not simple, so it cannot be simplified. What are my further thoughts about the temptation to exist? The book packs a lot to digest in its few pages. If you are interested in existential questions, this is a pretty good read. It might even confirm your depressing view of life as a valid option, contrary to what people around you tell you. Temptation exists. What does it mean? Does it refer to the illusion or difficulty in existing because all we can do is try and it is a lost cause? In temptation, instead of simply existing, we are trying to find meaning in meaningless life. Seems temptation to exist is to go against ourselves, our instincts. That's why it is failure. Cioran wonders whether it is possible to find any meaning or purpose within the existence itself, or whether this search is fundamentally futile. He questions what is the fundamental purpose and value of existence. He argues that life is ultimately meaningless and filled with suffering, leading to a sense of despair and futility. He analyzes existential crises faced by individuals and explores the various ways people cope with the absurdity of existence. He suggests that the human condition is characterized by a constant longing for something beyond our reach. He argues that this longing is inherent to our nature and drives us to pursue goals and ambitions, seeking a sense of purpose and fulfillment. However, he also knows that these pursuits often lead to disappointment and an increased awareness of the emptiness and meaninglessness of life. He says that existence itself is inherently problematic as it is marked by suffering and anxiety and the relentless pursuit of meaning. He argues that individuals are often tempted to escape this suffering by embracing non-existence, whether through suicide or by embracing a detached attitude toward life. However, he acknowledges that while non-existence may offer relief from the burdens of existence, it also denies individuals the opportunity to experience any potential joys or moments of meaning that life may offer. So basically, we are driven or maintained alive by hope for something better. To make his point, Cioran explores various philosophical and cultural perspectives on existence, using sources such as Nietzsche, Kierkegaard, and Pascal. He also presents his own personal reflections and experiences, blending together philosophy, poetry, and autobiographical elements. He also questions religion, its attempts to be some kind of remedy for our psychological despair. He gives more credit to the Eastern religions, which seem to be more philosophical and less intrusive. There was one. A life of intensity is contrary to the Tao, teaches Lao Tse, a normal man if ever there was one. But the Christian virus torments us, heirs of the flagellants. It is by refining our excruciations that we become conscious of ourselves. To sum it up, the temptation to exist is a profound but also confusing exploration of existential despair, the futility of human existence, and the temptation to embrace non-existence as a way to escape suffering and maybe find true freedom. It offers an interesting perspective on the human condition, trying to explain the inherent absurdity and meaninglessness of life. The book ultimately offers a bleak and nihilistic view of existence. Cioran suggests that life is a constant struggle against suffering and despair, and that the pursuit of meaning is ultimately futile. However, he also emphasizes the importance of embracing this existential dilemma and finding consolation in the very act of questioning and reflecting on our existence. The forthcoming conclusion seems to be that if you are questioning the meaning of life, the questioning might be the very meaning you are looking for. Perhaps reading this kind of literature makes possible finding some kind of contentment or satisfaction in knowing that you try to find meaning in existence, even though you really didn't get any answers. Maybe facing the worst possibility and learning to accept it and to ask critical questions about life is to want to know the truth, not just going through the motions because you are afraid of what the truth might be. The book doesn't offer any answers, but it might confirm what you feel, and it might give you freedom to just exist. Cioran says a beggar can be himself because he has no possessions. Basically, freedom is found in nothingness. He is somewhat antithetical to the American ideal of pursuing happiness, which basically is accumulation of material wealth, which in the long run seems superficial and meaningless in itself. I listened to a conversation between two American multimillionaires, Bill Maher and Mark Cuban, harping on how much freedom money gives. Maybe freedom in the American definition of the word. Money gives you independence, but at the same time makes you dependent on it, so it gives you nothing, except for some superficial highs, which might prevent you from finding true freedom. Freedom seems much more internal, intangible, a sense of detachment. You could be in prison and still feel free, so maybe the only way to find true freedom is to lose everything. Its author. Every work turns against its author. The poem will crush the poet, the system, the philosopher, the event, the man of destruction. Destruction awaits anyone who, answering to his vocation and qualifying it, exerts himself within history. Only the man who has sacrificed every gift and talent escapes. Released from his humanity, he may lodge himself in being. The temptation to exist is also indirectly about the decline of the Western society. Similar to Nietzsche's argument, it seems to imply that the temptation to exist is more prevalent in the declining society. Basically, our society is dying and we are desperate. I find Cioran's view of everything being meaningless maybe not appealing, but as a balance to the world where everybody tries so hard and the smallest insignificant events are made important and have critical consequences on individual lives. Using the contemporary label, Cioran's world might seem as a safe space. In his writings, Cioran comes across as very gloomy and bleak, but in person, as can be seen in some interviews he did in French, he seemed a lot more upbeat, cheerful, and often laughed. Maybe once he came to accept life for what it is, nothing, he decided to just enjoy the ride. When he was young, he probably was visibly pretty unhappy. His mother said that if she knew he was going to be such an unhappy SOB, she would have aborted him, which didn't bother him. Maybe the secret is to accept life for what it is, not for what you would like it to be. And maybe that's why older people, in general, tend to be happier. On the surface, all existential and nihilistic philosophies are pretty depressing, but once you understand them, they also become liberating. Okay, let's talk about the physical book. The book I am holding is a paperback which I transformed into hardcover leather-bound edition. To make the cover, I use grade A naturally tan hide I buy from a tannery in North Spain. It is the same leather Louis Vuitton uses to make his bags, so it is top quality. I do all the processing of the leather myself. First I design the cover, and for this I use this abstract painting of a man agonizing about something, maybe his whole existence, the difficulty of it. This is the bag with the blurb, and inside front cover I printed a quote from the book. If you want to see a more detailed video where I explain how I transform paperback into leather-bound hardcover, click on the link in the description. I will make a maximum of 100 editions of each title. Each one will be numbered and initialed, and the numbers will go in chronological order from 2 up, since number 1 stays with me. The price will be around $100, so if you would like me to make one for you, you can click below on my email and send me a message. I do not guarantee I will do it, since it will depend on the time I have available, access to the leather, and if I can get my hands on the copy of the book. Now, if you're not willing to spend the $100 but you still want the book, what you can do is click below on the PayPal link and donate $3 or more to my channel, and for every 100 donations I will make a lottery and draw one name, and the winner will receive the book. So if you are cheap but feel lucky, this might be the way to do it. Also, your donations give me the extra motivation to make the book reviews, and I appreciate them very much, so thank you in advance. Well, that's it, so let's end it here, and until next time, keep your ear close to the ground and read a book. Adios.